Welcome to this week's episode of SNT's 10 and 10, where you get the top 10 space news stories in less than 10 minutes. In this week's show, we feature tragedy for the IM-2, Starship 34 disaster, secret launch, secret landing, oopsie. All this and more on this extended edition of SNT next.
60 seconds.
This week, coming in at number 10, SpaceX has launched one Falcon 9 mission since our last episode. It was a Starlink launch from Slick 40 on Booster 1062. The mission was successful. However, we'll show you something here at the end that wasn't so good. Here we see the liftoff. Liftoff is progressing well here. Here you see the plume extended as we're up in the upper atmosphere. Here comes stage separation. There's stage separation and your ignition of your Merlin vacuum engine. Merlin Raptor engine. I'm lost, man. Now here comes a shot of the reentry of the Booster 1062, and you can see the cool, glow of the grid fins as it's on reentry. You have this massive ion build up there, and it's interfering with the communications too. But here comes the landing here on the autonomous drone ship, a short fall of gravitas, and everything looked fine on the landing. And Booster 1062 is coming down. This is its 23rd flight, and here come the landing legs. There's the autonomous drone ship, a short fall of gravitas.
Stage 1 landing leg deploy.
And here comes the landing. And everything seems fine. The landing is nominal, and then SpaceX pans away to the second stage, but this is what they didn't show you. This was shortly after the landing. Booster 1062, a fire erupts due to a fuel leak, and it tips over and goes boom. This week, coming in at number 9, Blue Origin launched the suborbital Phallus rocket on NS-30, carrying passengers again. Nothing out of nominal to report on that, as the mission was successful with the recovery of both the capsule and the first stage, which landed successfully in Texas. Here we see the head of the Phallus separate from the first stage, and the tourists inside are experiencing zero-G here momentarily. They have pretty good views, I would imagine. Here comes the first stage of new Shepard, the Phallus rocket, coming in for a landing. And their drone shot screwed up here. I guess they lost signal on their drone, and they had to go to a ground shot, which was cluttered by the huge dust cloud that it stirs up. That's where their drone shot froze. So now you can't really see it land, but the dust clears, and the first stage did land successfully.
Looks like touchdown tail 4. Wow.
And here comes the head of the Phallus, aka the capsule, coming in for a parachute landing in Texas. And it has those thrusters that ignite just before it touches down.
And touchdown! Welcome back, astronauts.
I mean, perfect 10. Should we say that?
I'd say 10 out of 10 for our astronauts and for the whole program here at Blue Origin.
This week, coming in at number 8, NASA has selected Firefly Aerospace Alpha rocket to carry several small CubeSats to space that will study storm formation. Firefly will fly these satellites to space aboard their Alpha rocket from Wallops Island Spaceport in Virginia no earlier than 2026. This is an enormous contract for Firefly Aerospace after their successful moon landing, which you're watching here, and it may allow them to further develop their launch systems. Firefly, along with Rocket Lab, are both companies to keep an eye on for eventual competition against the launch giant SpaceX, Blue Origin, and ULA. This is Firefly's landing. I was going to cover it separately, but they did release a video of their landing, which is pretty awesome. Mega congratulations to Firefly Space on sticking that landing. This week, coming in at number 7, ULA's CEO Tory Bruno announced that ULA is prepared for up to 6 launches in 2025 with their Vulcan Centaur rocket. He went on to state that there were 6 Vulcan Centaurs under construction, but it's unknown whether or not ULA is still up for sale. ULA without a reusable system is in its death throes. This press announcement begging for launch contracts with non-competitive pricing is absolutely demonstrative of Bruno's absolute failure in vision to recognize the need for reusable launch systems in order to compete with SpaceX and upcoming Blue Origin heavy launch vehicles. This week, coming in at number 6, Butch Wilmore confirmed that Elon was telling the truth. Listen up, y'all.
Question relates to Elon Musk has said that he made the offer to bring you guys back earlier and that it was denied. My first question is that true? And if so, what would that have looked like? Was he offering to make another flight, push seats on another flight? Could you give us some background there?
I can only say that Mr. Musk, what he says is absolutely factual. We have no information on that, though, whatsoever. What was offered, what was not offered, who it was offered to, how that processes went. That's information that we simply don't have. So I believe him. I don't know all those details, and I don't think any of us really can give you the answer that you would be hoping for.
I'll be happy to direct any additional questions on this topic to a subject matter expert after this news conference. Let's continue to focus on this cruise mission.
It's interesting to listen there in the end of the clip when NASA comms tries to divert the conversation away from where it was. But it looks like the ISS commander, Andreas Mogensen, is about to eat some crow with many others that accused Musk of lying. Coming in at number 5 this week's NASA's SphereX and PUNCH will fly tonight aboard a Falcon 9 rocket launching from Vandenberg Space Force Base at about 10:30 p.m. California time. SphereX is a wide-angle spectrophotometer that is meant to supplement information gathered by JWST. PUNCH, which stands for Polarimeter to Unify the Corona and Heliosphere, will be looking to unlock solar dynamics. And here we see both satellites encapsulated in SpaceX fairing, ready to go tonight. This week, coming in at number 4, ESA Ariane 6 launches from French Guyana on its second flight with a French spy satellite on board. The launch occurred on March 6, 2025, and the launch was successful by all secretive accounts. This week, coming in at 3, the secretive X37 Spaceplane ended its 7th mission when it touched down at Vandenberg Space Force Base on March 7, 2025. It was launched in December of 2023 aboard a SpaceX Falcon Heavy rocket. While its overall mission is a matter of national security and secrecy, it's published that there were several long-endurance orbital maneuvering tests conducted on this flight, which lasted for more than a year. This week, coming in at number 2, Intuitive Machines IM-2 mission, which we spoke about in last week's episode when it was launched aboard a Falcon 9 rocket, attempted a landing on the lunar South Pole on March 5, 2025, just before IFT-8 launched. Shortly after touchdown, IM Mission Control wasn't getting the expected readings, and were working to save power and shut down non-critical systems. While it took them a while to admit it, IMT had tipped over upon landing, just like IM-1. It was an ominous foreshadowing of what was to come for number 1 this week. This week, coming in at number 1, SpaceX launched its 8th integrated flight test of the Starship Super Heavy Experimental Launch System from Starbase Texas Pad A on March 5th, 2025 at around 5:31 p.m. Central Time. And here's the launch, and I'll let y'all listen in. I'll be doing a deep dive into this launch in a separate video that I'll publish this weekend, which you should find a link in the upper right-hand corner to that video once it's published.
Back here at the launch tower. Coming up now on hot staging, the ship's engines will ignite while still attached to the Super Heavy booster, and also while Super Heavy booster will still be under power itself. The clamps holding the 2 stages together are going to release. And Starship second.
Here comes hot staging that everybody's blaming this issue on, but it's not. I don't think it's the hot staging.
Ship engine startup. Stage separation.
You can see on the boost back burn there, we've got 2 engines out on the booster for boost back burn, which didn't create a problem. They still called go for catch. And at this point, all 6 engines were functioning well. You can see from inside this view, everything's functioning well. You can see mock diamonds. All is well on the Starship at this point. And then we pan over, and all the attention, of course, focuses on the booster reentry and attempted catch, which is coming up next. So here comes the booster in for its attempted catch. You can see it's trying to break through the atmosphere there. There's the typical fire from the methane gases that leach into there to keep the engines cool. And here comes the engine on in just 1 second. Here they come. And all but one lit for the catch. And then we're down to 3 engines here. And booster 15 swings into the arms of the Mechazilla launch mount for what was an excellent catch. And I'm sorry I didn't catch the audio on this video. I'll catch the audio for my deep dive, but we'll have the audio on board for the deep dive. But another successful catch of booster 15. Again, at this point in the flight is when things started going amok for flight 7. And, you know, flight 8 actually made it another minute before we started seeing problems. And we started seeing problems at about the 8-minute mark. When they pan back to the Starship, you can start seeing some of the problems that popped up. So at this point, the Starship's engines are all still going. The 3 vacuum engines and the 3 sea level engines are all going. But you can see a glow on the vacuum engine on the left-hand side of the screen. And also there's a red glow inside the engine bay that wasn't there before. And there's also a gas leak. And now you'll see one of these vacuum engines go out. The one in the upper right-hand side of the screen at the lower bottom. There you go. And when that one went out, it kicked out 2 of the sea levels, which that's what they maneuver with. And then you have, you know, non-even thrust coming out of one side of the Starship, which forces it into this tumble, which, you know, it's tumbling almost up in outer space. I mean, it's in the upper reaches of the atmosphere at this point. I mean, you can see the curvature of the Earth in the background. And it's tumbling out of control. And then they, you know, begin to lose signal of the Starship as it's tumbling and not communicating with the satellites. And, you know, it's in its death spiral here. It's all but over. And the sad part is we were really 20 seconds away from engine shutdown and the thing, you know, being able to re-enter the atmosphere in Australia. You know, it's just a shame. There's some kind of problem late in the burn, you know, between 7 and 8 minutes into the burn with these Starship V2s. And it's got to be something in the plumbing, some kind of leak or some issue, you know, internally that they've got to work out. I think V2 requires a total re-engineer. Of course, once they lost signal, this is what was filmed over Florida and the Caribbean. You can see the Starship there spiraling, and then probably the onboard explosives went off here. The flight termination system, the FTS, went off here, and that's the detonation you see there. You know, there's no atmosphere to hold in the detonation, so the detonation is very broad. But I thought this video, which, you know, I have the credit for on X there, this video is very illustrative because it captures the detonation of the flight termination system, and then it goes on to finish capturing what it looked like as the debris was raining down. And I know we're going way longer than 10 minutes here, but I want y'all to focus on the debris as the debris comes down. Angry astronaut, and I love Scott Manley, but, you know, they've all been super, super critical of the FAA for allowing this flight. Look, these flights are made in safe launch corridors that are not over land, they're not over people. And, you know, airlines are given notice that this is happening. And when they had the RUD, they immediately notified airlines to divert flights within the debris fall area. But I want you to watch this debris. You know, initially it's big. You can see there's a bunch of pieces there that are separate, that are falling. But the big pieces become little pieces as it burns up, as it's coming in the atmosphere. It was going over 20,000 kilometers per hour when it broke up. So, you know, something going that fast running into the Earth's atmosphere, it's just like y'all look up in the night sky and see these meteors, and very rarely do you see a meteor impact the Earth. And yes, I realize some of this ship was designed for reentry, But the fact of the matter is a bulk of the ship is burned up. The fuel is gone. The fuel went with the FTS system. These are all big pieces of stainless steel that are breaking apart as they fall and burning up as they fall. I mean, you've seen the burn up and the melting of the stainless steel that's not protected in several of these launches. And that's exactly what's happening here. These pieces of stainless steel and debris are burning up in the atmosphere, as they, basically use an atmospheric deceleration to burn them up. That's exactly what's happening here. They're all very small pieces. But what I want you to watch is this is the actual meteor shower that was visible. And this shot was actually, I believe, taken from Florida. And, the thousands of items here that Starship 34 are getting smaller and smaller and less bright and less bright as they go into the atmosphere. And eventually he's only tracking a couple of pieces that remain. Now, because this ship's burn lasted about a minute longer than the previous burn, I think that this fallout was well east of any of the Caribbean islands, and it's a non-issue. Thanks for staying on board for the extended edition. I went longer than 10 minutes this week, and hope you tune in next week for SNT. Catch y'all later.
60 seconds.
That's one small step for